the architectural history of Plzeň. When people hear the name Plzeň, many immediately think of beer. And yes, this Czech city is famous around the world for Pilsner lager. But Plzeň is much more than beer. It is a city where architecture quietly tells a powerful story. A story of kings and merchants, wars and industries, empires and independence, destruction and rebirth. Plzeň's buildings are like pages in a history book. If you walk through the city slowly and look carefully, you can read nearly 800 years of European history written in stone, brick, steel, and glass. From medieval churches to Renaissance townhouses, from Baroque monuments to industrial factories, and from communist-era housing to modern design. Plzeň shows how architecture changes as society changes. This is the architectural history of Plzeň, told simply, clearly, and step by step. 1. The birth of Plzeň, a medieval city, 13th century. Plzeň was officially founded in 1295 by King Wenceslas II of Bohemia. Unlike many European cities that grew slowly over centuries, Plzeň was carefully planned from beginning. The king chose a strategic location where 4 rivers meet, the Mzi, Radbuza, Alava, and Uslava. These rivers help with trade, defense, and transportation. The city was designed as a royal town, which meant it had special rights and protections. Medieval city planning. Plzeň was laid out in a grid pattern, which was very modern for its time. At the center was a huge main square, now called Republic Square in the Mesti Republiki. This square is still one of the largest medieval town squares in Europe. The city was surrounded by thick stone walls, towers, and gates. These were built for protection during times of war. Inside the walls, narrow streets connected homes, workshops, markets, and churches. Most medieval buildings were made from wood, which made fires common and dangerous. Over time, stone and brick replaced wood, especially for important buildings. 2. Gothic architecture. Faith and power in stone. The most important medieval building in Plzeň is the Cathedral of St. Bartholomew. Construction began in the late 13th century and continued for many decades. St. Bartholomew's Cathedral. This cathedral is built in the Gothic style, which was popular across Europe during the Middle Ages. Gothic architecture is easy to recognize once you know its features. Tall, pointed arches, high ceilings that lift the eyes upward, narrow windows filled with stained glass, strong stone structures supported by hidden engineering. The cathedral's tower rises over 100 meters, making it the tallest church tower in the Czech Republic. In medieval times, such height was a symbol of faith, pride, and power. The church was meant to remind people of God's presence and the city's importance. Inside, the cathedral feels tall and calm. Light filters through colored windows, creating a peaceful atmosphere. For medieval citizens, this building was not just a church. It was a heart of spiritual life. 3. Renaissance Plzeň, wealth, trade, and decoration, 16th century. By the 1500s, Plzeň had grown wealthy from trade, crafts, and brewing. With wealth came change. People wanted buildings that showed comfort, culture, and status, not just defense. This period brought Renaissance architecture, inspired by ancient Greece and Rome. What changed in Renaissance architecture? Renaissance buildings were more symmetrical and balanced, decorated with painted facades, designed to feel human and comfortable. Less focus on defense, more on beauty. Merchant houses around the main square were rebuilt with ornate facades, decorative gables, and elegant windows. Many buildings were painted in soft colors with artistic details. Plzeň's Town Hall. One of the best examples of Renaissance architecture is Plzeň's Town Hall. Built in the mid-16th century, it shows classical proportions, decorative details, and a sense of order. The town hall symbolized civic pride. It represented not the church or the king, but the citizens themselves. For Baroque Plzeň, drama, religion, and recovery, 17th to 18th century. The 17th century was a difficult time. Europe was torn apart by the 30 Years' War, and Plzeň was occupied by foreign armies. Many buildings were damaged or destroyed. When peace returned, the city rebuilt in the Baroque style. What is Baroque architecture? Baroque architecture is dramatic and emotional, richly decorated, full of curves, movement, and contrast, designed to impress and inspire. This style was closely connected to Catholic Church, which wanted to show strength and beauty after years of conflict. Baroque churches and monasteries. Plzeň gained new Baroque churches, monasteries, and statues. These buildings used bold shapes, large domes, decorative interiors with gold, paintings, and sculptures. Baroque architecture turned the city into a place of visual storytelling, where buildings were meant to make people feel awe and emotion. 5. The Industrial Revolution. Smoke, steel, and expansion, 19th century. The 1800s completely changed Plzeň. The Industrial Revolution arrived, and with it came factories, railways, and rapid growth. Industry shapes architecture. Plzeň became a major industrial center, especially for engineering and manufacturing. The most famous company was Skoda Works, founded in the mid-19th century. New types of buildings appeared. Factories with large halls, warehouses and workshops, worker housing blocks, railway stations. These buildings were practical, strong, and functional. Decoration mattered less than efficiency. Historicist styles. At the same time, public buildings were built in historicist styles, which copied older architectural forms. Neo-Gothic, Neo-Renaissance, Neo-Baroque. This mix created a city where medieval churches stood next to modern factories, a powerful contrast that still defines Plzeň today. 6. Art Nouveau, beauty meets modern life, early 20th century. Around 1900, architecture took a softer, more artistic turn with Art Nouveau, also known as Secession style. Features of Art Nouveau. Art Nouveau buildings feature flowing lines and curves, floral and plant designs, decorative ironwork, artistic windows and doors. In Plzeň, many residential and commercial buildings were designed in this style. They brought elegance and creativity to the growing industrial city. These buildings showed that even in a modern industrial world, beauty still mattered. 7. Functionalism, simplicity and purpose, 1920s, 1930s. After World War I, Czechoslovakia became an independent country. Architecture reflected a new way of thinking, one focused on logic, efficiency, and the future. What is functionalism? Functionalist architecture believes that a building should look like what it is used for. Decoration is unnecessary. Clean lines and simple shapes are best. Plzeň became an important center of Czech functionalism. Adolf Loos and modern living. The famous architect Adolf Loos designed several interiors in Plzeň. He believed that beauty comes from space, materials, and proportion, not decoration. Functionalist buildings in Plzeň look modern even today. They represent optimism, progress, and belief in a better future. 8. War and destruction. World War II. World War II brought hardship and damage. Plzeň's factories made it a target for bombing. Many industrial buildings were destroyed or damaged. However, much of the historic city center survived. This allowed Plzeň to preserve its architectural layers better than many European cities. 9. Communist-era architecture. Control and uniformity, 1948 to 1989. After the war, Czechoslovakia became a communist state. Architecture once again changed, this time driven by ideology. Socialist realism and panel housing. Early communist buildings were monumental and heavy, meant to show power. Later, the focus shifted to mass housing. Large housing estates, known as panlaks, were built from concrete panels. These buildings were cheap and fast to build, uniform in design, focused on function, not beauty. While often criticized, these buildings provided homes for thousands of people and became part of everyday life. 10. Modern Plzeň, preservation and innovation, 1990. Today, after the fall of communism in 1989, Plzeň entered a new era. Restoration of historic buildings. Many historic buildings were restored, churches cleaned and repaired, townhouses repainted, public spaces renewed. The city learned to value its past, not erase it. Modern architecture. New buildings now use glass, steel, and modern materials. Sustainable and eco-friendly design. Respect for historic surroundings. Plzeň balances old and new, tradition and innovation. In 2015, Plzeň was named European Capital of Culture, confirming its importance not just industrially, but culturally and architecturally. Conclusion: a city written in stone. Plzeň is not defined by one architectural style. It is defined by layers. Medieval walls tell stories of defense. Gothic churches speak of faith. Renaissance houses show wealth. Baroque buildings express emotion. Factories reflect industry. Functionalist homes show modern thinking. Concrete housing blocks reveal political history. And modern architecture shows hope for the future. Plzeň's architecture is not frozen in time. It is alive. It changes, adapts, and remembers. And that is what makes Plzeň special. It is a city where history is not locked inside museums. It stands openly on the streets, waiting for anyone willing to look up, slow down, and listen.